We have been following what's been happening in the aftermath of Hurricane Irma down in Florida and beyond. And with me now on the phone is Republican Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, thank you very much for joining us. I know you've been touring the Keys. You're headed out to the Tampa area. We're looking at some video of what you've been doing over the last couple of days to assess the devastation. And I've got to ask you to start, Senator. We are just learning now of something happening in Hollywood at a nursing home or rehabilitation facility. 5 people dead. 115 others evacuated. A criminal investigation now open. I know it's very early, and I'm actually not sure if you've been briefed on this yet, but when you hear that, walk me through what's going through your mind.
Well, my understanding that's a carbon monoxide incident.
And that's something you've heard from officials in Hollywood? That's not to my knowledge, but if that's what you've heard. Okay. Yeah,
that's what I heard from a reporter, that it was some, and I hope I'm not wrong, so let me just speak in general terms about that, and that is, we've lost a number of people now in the aftermath of the storm to generators, and generators that are being run too close to the house and too close to the facility. That carbon monoxide gets in and it's deadly. So, it sounds like the death toll post-storm is higher than during the storm, and that's not unusual, unfortunately, because of incidents like that. And, obviously we'll learn more about the facts, but it's truly tragic, and hopefully, we won't have more of them. People need to be very careful of those generators.
And perhaps an indication that despite the fact that the storm has passed, it's no longer raining in South Florida, right? The skies are blue. There is still a lot of work ahead in the recovery efforts here. One Monroe County official talked about what's happening in the Keys as a humanitarian crisis. Would you describe it that way?
Well, anytime you have people cut off from power for a significant period of time now, water, potable water, energy, no fuel to move around, you are concerned about it, absolutely. And we remain concerned. And I think there's the damage you can see, and then the damage that's going to be around for a long time. You think about all those little family-owned businesses in that area that, aren't going to have any sort of business activity. There's not going to be a lot of tourism in the Keys here for a while. That's going to hurt a lot of people economically. People who have lost their homes and are going to have to find temporary shelter while those homes are rebuilt. And that's happening in different parts of the state. I just left a tour with Senator Nelson of the agriculture sector. Our crop losses and citrus are devastating for an industry that was already struggling with a pest called greening that was killing trees. It lost a lot of trees and a lot of fruit. These are small. A lot of these are family-owned businesses, 3 or 4 generations, not wealthy people. It'll be very difficult for them to come back. I mean, it takes 4 years for an orange grove to stand up again when you replant it, and if they do. So there's a lot of little multifaceted losses long after the roofs have been put back on and the roads are cleared.
And when you talk about not just the economic impact, the personal impact, what is the federal government's role in trying to get South Florida, the rest of the state, back on its feet?
Well, there's a number of things that we do. The first, of course, is FEMA assistance for individuals, the transitional housing. If someone can't go back to their home because it's unsafe, water damage, structural damage, if you're in one of those trailers in the Keys, there's assistance available to you, and just getting people signed up for that so they can get those funds. The Small Business Administration will step in and provide short-term, interest-free, loans for businesses to survive while there's a significant period of time of losses. And then obviously, with the local governments are strained right now with the costs of all this. No local government can save enough money to pay for the cost. So there's all sorts of reimbursements to local government, and then obviously some long-term assistance from the Agriculture Department as well for our our agriculture industry. But right now we're still kind of in the life-saving mode and in humanitarian assistance, and transitioning now to assessing some of the long-term needs.
And when you look at the long-term needs, it seems clear that Congress is going to need to approve some kind of a supplemental request for disaster relief money for the state of Florida. How much should that be? And can you talk about your involvement with Governor Scott, with the White House, in trying to get that money through?
Well, we don't know how much. That's what the assessments are ongoing, to give us an indication of how many people are displaced. How much reimbursement will local governments need that qualify. That's an ongoing process. I have little doubt that we'll have the support we need for emergency funding. I think where you get in trouble with the supplemental is when you start putting stuff in there that's 3 years down the road and tangentially related to the storm, but not really about recovering from the storm. That should be part of the normal budgeting process, and it will be. So right now, we're still assessing the dollar figure. It will be substantial.
And before I let you go, we've been talking about Irma, the recovery there, but I have to ask you about another issue that I know is important to you, and that is DACA and what happens to these dreamers, particularly since Paul Ryan and Nancy Pelosi are meeting later today to talk about it. You've said you would support a clean bill, something that just deals with DACA. Have you had a conversation with the White House on what the president would sign, given indications that is not how this administration is leaning? And do you worry the president is sending mixed messages with his tweets and his comments?
Well, I haven't paid attention to the tweets the last few days, so I don't know what he had said recently. I've spoken to the president personally on numerous occasions, spoke to the White House on Friday before their announcement, and I think it was clear to me from those conversations that they do want Congress to pass something. I haven't yet gotten a clear indication, obviously, because we've been focused on the storm about what the guideposts would be for what he would sign, but I feel pretty confident the president wants to do something to help them. And but it has to be obviously within the confines of something that's not going to create a different set of problems. But in terms of encouraging people to do that in the future, but I'm convinced he wants to do something on it, and we'll certainly be focused and try to be helpful. Or we'll be helpful in trying to get something done.
And if it's not a clean bill, you'd still sign it?
Yeah, look, I just said that was it's not my criteria. It is what I believe gives us the best chance of passing.
Got it.
I think that where these things get complicated, and we don't have 2 years to debate in 6 months, and even I think it's less, really, because you know, who's going to hire you if 6 months from now you may not have a work permission? So I think there's a certainty factor at play here, and you now read about people in the military that are being impacted by this, and so I think that the reason why I'm talking about a clean bill is because I think that's the easiest thing to get through. When you start adding things to it, you start building resistance, and that's what I want to avoid if we can.
Senator Rubio on the ground there in Florida. I know you're headed up to Tampa. A lot of folks thinking about you guys down there and the long road to recovery ahead. I really appreciate you joining us here on the show, Senator. Thank you.
Thanks for covering this. Thanks.
We know that the